Hey everybody, welcome to Obscurities in Miniatures. It's Friday once more, so it's time for yet another obscurity in literature. Sadly, today's obscurity is woefully antiquated, but that's okay. We want to share it with you nonetheless. I was helping go through some of the books at my parents' house, and Sparkletrout uncovered this rare gem, and this book was kind of like our cipher to understanding the world of super robots and robots in general when it came to the days of life before the internet. So, getting information on all the funky shows, toys, model kits, especially that we were building growing up, it was hard to come by. And as we were starting to learn and study the language, we started to venture out into a lot of the more Japanese bookstores. And I remember this is a book that in the early days of the internet somebody recommended for getting to become more familiar with some of the material that was out there in terms of toys and kits. So this is the View Broadly Super Robots Encyclopedia. This was published originally in 1997. So like I said, the information in here is going to be quite out of date. But what's interesting about this book is it puts things in a chronological order, starting with Daitetsujin Niju Hachigo, or Gigantor as he was known in the US, which started things off in 1963 and progresses from there. Now, there are some odd entries here and there, but for the most part, everything in here is going to be purely animated. There's a couple of, like, I want to say the marionette stuff, I believe, that Gonagai was involved in, and obviously his big two right here, Getarobo and Mazinga, 72 and 74 respectively, and then we get into all of the side characters and other people, well, not even people, machines involved in the show. Now, we're missing the little boy robot that was in Great Mazinga with the baseball bats, but he's kind of cheesy and lame. And there is not much in here, unfortunately, on Grendizer either. You have Poseidon from Babel Nisei, Babel II, in 73. My personal favorite. Well, with a close tie at second, I guess, with Mazinga, is the Getarobo stuff. I was quite disappointed to find out when Ken Ishikawa, the original artist for most of this stuff, passed away before he got to finish Getarobo Arc. And yes, I know that is the most recent anime. Do check it out. Quite cool stuff. I remember seeing these illustrations all the time back in the day in a lot of the older Super Robot Wars promotional material, I believe. And we have some bits on Great Mazinga and all of his extra gear. For as ridiculous as the original Mazinga was, Great Mazinga took it to a whole new level. Grendizer, Roboizer. I don't recognize that at all. I think this is kind of the precursor to Grendizer. And then we have Pegasus from Tatsunoko's Tekkaman in its original form. Space Knight Tekkaman from 75. Getting into the upgraded versions of Getarobo in 75 as well, Getarobo G. And then we have the real Renaissance begin with writing in 75 and Sunrise really stepping up the super robots. Good old Jeeg, or as he was known to many Micronauts fans, Baron Karza, in his often miscolored versions. Before we had Shinji, or Gai King the Great. I believe Gai King was shown in the 70s. I never came across it. I've seen VHS tapes out there. It was part of the Force 5 or something like that. It was before my time, even. Daikimaru. Voltus V. No, it's Combatler V. Combatler 5. Good old cross sections of the machines. Gakeen, there's a one I had forgotten about, with the robots that attach to his arms and his crazy proportioned body. Groizer X, I believe. That's the one I thought was one of the puppet shows. I could be wrong. Diapolon does not even ring a bell. There's a few in here I don't recognize at all. Godom. Not familiar with. Surprisingly, Combattler gets a big thing, but then Voltus 5 gets half a page at the most. Mikanda Robo, looking way cooler than he has any right to. And Dangard Ace, one I have not ever gotten a chance to see. Bear Attack, there's an obscure one. Or Gingeyser in 77. This one does not ring a bell. I don't think I've ever come across stuff for that one. Outside of this book, at least. We get into the Zambot, Daitarn, Sun and Moon brothers. I did have an opportunity to watch Zambot, and it is absolutely miserable by the end of it. Daitarn never had a chance. Deimos. Deimos was another one I believe was in the 70s in the US. I could be wrong. I always like Deimos in the Super Robot War games. Daltanius. I've never seen the show, but I did own the original Gotican DX of it. That was one of the very few that I had, and I absolutely loved that thing and played with it until it was literally just parts and shambles. Yes. Daikengo, I don't recognize. Guardian. Oh, me and Guardian go way back. I remember years and years ago, obviously, Toys R Us was clearing out the original Goticans, and I want to say the big DX one was like something stupid like $5. I mean, really, really cheap. And I got the kiss of death when I asked my parents for it. My dad said, maybe next time. It'll be here next time. And you guys all know, even as a parent, having said that to my own children, it's never there the next time. Ever. It never is. That's been a sore spot. I've often debated about picking up the Soul of Chokokin and just, reliving my life. Speaking of Soul of Chokokin, I actually do have the original, and it isn't all that great, of the RX-78. Yes, we know you and we love you. Yes. You're not a die-cast one, though. God Sigma, another Godican that I always wanted to have and never owned, who's actually these three robots right here, and I have no idea what they're all about. The 80s version of Dai Tetsujin. Troider G7, I think was one of the very few robots that only showed up in Shin Super Robot Wars on the original PS1, where they decided to make everything full scale and non-SD, and it was really lame. Baldios. I used to have an old Baldios model that I put together. I really liked it. We get into some of the weird Tatsunoko robots. Yata de Taman. Good old Gold Lightan. Nothing says children appropriate like a solid die-cast golden lighter that kids are playing with to help defeat evil space aliens, right? Dioja. I think he was a Sunrise show. Sunrise seemed to make all the good ones. God Mars, never liked God Mars. That Go Shogun had a really cool design. And I remember watching a movie or something and just not digging it. So you can see we're starting to see as, I think we're like in the year 81, 82 at this point. We're getting into some of the more real robot stuff. Obviously, the super robots are still kind of hanging around at this point. Good old Go Lion, Voltron, whatever you want to call him, Breiger. Looks pretty cool. Looks vaguely Matsumoto-ish with the character designs, but now we're getting into, Zabungle, the Walker Gollier, Bachsinger, which Acro Bunch. I think I had a bunch of the old crappy Acro Bunch models painted up. Oh, this should look familiar to a lot of us. Yes, the good old Veritex, Valkyries, whatever you want to call them. 1982. Funny enough, I was just talking about Robotech with a coworker who, I guess, her sibling actually did some of the voices on the original show. And I don't think he was doing it, he was a non-union member, so I'm going to have to do some research into who he was doing the voices for. Dyruger 15, a.k.a. Big Space Voltron. Sarungle. I know nothing about you. Albegus. The Elemental Voltron. I do believe Albegus got a limited release in English. One of my personal favorites, the Dunbine. Some of the artwork of the Dunbine makes it way cooler than it has any right to be, with its light purple coloring and kind of soft blues in the show. The Bilbine. I know there's a Cerbine model kit that just came out recently, but it isn't very posable, unfortunately. I really dig Dunbine. Dunbine's a messed up show at times, too. The Scope Dog, which I think Sparkletrout has all of the Votom's saga on VHS still. I don't know what he's going to do with it. Good old Orgus. Never saw the show, but I had plenty of cheap knockoff toys of it. Psychic Warrior Govarian. And his Mazinga face. Oh, the Dorvac mechs. Bet you guys remember those if you grew up in the 80s. They were everywhere. All those cheap knockoff toys. VFAM. VFAM was one of the very first model kits I built in Japanese and had absolutely no clue what I was doing. Good times. I built some for my brother who's in Japan as well. The L game. Early Mamoru Nagano stuff. Very fun designs. One of the very first fan subs I remember watching. Galvion. Don't think I ever watched Galvion. Gorg, I believe, is actually in English available these days. Bismarck. More Robotech. God, Mazinga, that's what I was thinking. I kept thinking he wasn't in this book. You know I dig the fantasy stuff. Speaking of fantasy, I would love to see more of these kinds of designs on the tabletop. Everybody's always doing the usual elves and goblins and stuff. Who's doing all my crazy mech? Like that big giant diecast thing I had the other day on here. Where's that stuff? Dan Cougar. Me and Dan Cougar go way back. I always wanted it. I always dug that art. All gritty and realistic. I'm not a big Transformers fan either, but dig Dorvac okay. Or Dugram. Dorvac too. Toby Kage. And all his extra mechs that he would hop into. I believe they would be in robot mode, and then he would form the chest usually to turn them into animal mode, if I remember my Super Robot War games correctly. And there was another rival ninja one, but he doesn't seem to be in here. So we're like in the mid-80s now. This is 85, Zeta Gundam, an Autobot, Lasner. We got some Lasner stuff we're going to show off in the near future. We just finished building all the Super Mini Claw. Ah, Megazone 23. There's the Garland. I love this book that it's like this mix of both artwork, cell art, early CG. Who are you? I don't even recognize this guy. I want to say Battle Hackers. I think this is the sequel series to Machine Robo Revenge of Kronos, which was an absolutely fun show early on with Rom Stoll here, as he basically played Kenshiro in a robotic post-apocalyptic western, and the proportions were pure Obari. I can't think of the guy's other name, his first name. But they're super, like, crazy long legs and over-exaggerated poses. It was a fun time. I had some very fun music in it, too. Dragner, I was talking with Sparkletrout about Dragner the other day. We were both suggesting that it was a take on trying to import the Gundam formula for a more Western audience, but then never bothered to actually come out. Has a very multicultural cast, which was kind of cool, and most of the minority type characters were not just, stereotypes and playing it up for laughs, but like actually important members of the team, which was pretty cool at the time. You get the lifters on them, and they had a total Char knockoff, and I remember in the Super Robot War games, they were super awesome. And good old Dan Gaio, time to crossfight. Wataru, if you ever had a TurboGrafx 16, you saw this dude in Keith Courage in the Alpha Zone. And I saw some of the Chinese toy makers made a crazy Ryujin Maru die-cast, like life-size, or not life-size, but full-scale model based on the, I want to say like off the Barbados, Gundam Barbados, or maybe off of the Ashtray, I don't know, but I might have to get one. Got Gunbuster, Zeo Rhymer, which Sparkletrout says I owned at one point, but I do not recall that ever. Jushin Riger, the new Gundam Grand Zord, which was actually pretty entertaining, I must say. And we start getting into some of the weirder shows here. And then, about the year 1990, that is when we have the first of the Braves with X-Kaiser. And then the pages start getting filled up with, then they have the Eldoran, Raijin-O in 91. And more of the Wataru stuff. Get a Robo Go, Shin Get a Robo. Good times in the 90s. We have this tiny little picture up here of the 90s revival of Daitetsujin, and I have never come across anything from the show. Not even back in the days of fan subs. Dagar and the F91, Firebird, Gumbaruga, Kandamurobo from Shinjan stuff. The Modern Pegasus from Tekkaman Blade, which I remember seeing on the local UPN network when my brother was little. Enjoyed that with D-Boy. Giant Robo and Ginrei. Valkyrie 2 from Macross 2. I know I saw it at some point. Might Gain in all his forms. Gozor in all his forms. Kishin Haiden. That's a name I have not heard in a while. I think I saw it at one point. J. Decker. Red Baron. Now, I love the Red Baron Tokusatsu show, which I think is still out there on DVD. It's a lot of fun. This was an animated one, and I saw one single episode at random on one of the local Spanish stations in the late 90s, which was entertaining. Susanoo O. I don't think I've ever seen that show. The Shining and God Gundams. Here we have the Fire Valkyrie from Macross 7, way at the top there. Macross Plus. The Rayarth ladies. So, if you're not aware, they actually have from Motoroid, Good Smile Company, is making all 3 mechs in the very near future. The Reunite stuff. I don't think I ever opened that. Orgus 2. I remember watching an old manga video preview for that way back in the day. In the Wing Gundam. Goldran. Oh. Getting the Ava Shinji. More Braves. Versus Knight and 40. That is not a name I've seen in a long time either. Escaflowne. Do you guys know they made some real nice kits from those too? We'll have to show those off. Gundam X. And finally Nadesco and Geki Ganger. Gao Gaigar wasn't even released when this came out. Never mind all the other stuff that's happened in the meantime since this was first published back in 1997. But just a fun trip for us down memory lane. And, you know, first discovering this book pre-internet was just a big, major eye-opener. And having spent so much time in places like Mandarake, you know, Hobby Off, Book Off, all those kinds of stores when we first started heading over to Japan and, you know, hitting all the stores over here, it just, I don't know, it added to the thrill of the hunt. You know, finding out and having that drive and urge to learn more about this stuff. So this was a very major gateway book for us and led us to many adventures over the years. So it's fun to look back at it, and I'm sure it's long out of print, but they probably have a more up-to-date one anyways with better artwork and probably even more junk in it at this point because it's been a good 20-something years. So yeah, fun times. We'll let you all reminisce with us in the comments section, which I'm sure some of you will. And hopefully everybody out there is going to be off and having a good time too. With that said, this has been High Lord Tamerlane with Obscurities and Miniatures, saying thanks for watching, and we will see you back here soon. Bye-bye.